This conference will now be recorded.
All right, so we'd like to welcome everybody to this webinar. We have Brian Epperson from Target River. He's the CEO, and he is going to try and help us to talk about, I think it's target marketing to grow your business. And we're super excited to learn from his expertise. For anybody that you know that may be interested in listening to this, we will have a recording that we'll be posting online and make it available. So if you miss parts of it, or if you have technical difficulties, there will be a recording to watch afterwards. So Brian, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you very much, Josie. Again, my name is Brian Epperson. Target River is a full-service marketing agency. We launched about 5.5 years ago. And what that means, to try to break down the jargon, is really that we built the agency with the intent and a desire to be able to help businesses with any type of their marketing tactics. We often found that in our space, at least, there's a lot of companies that specialize in one form of marketing. Maybe it's search engine optimization or paid search or direct mail or some other tactic, but then they don't know how to do other things. So then unfortunately, their recommendations are somewhat limited in what they're able to provide expertise or suggestions on. So as we built our company, we really wanted to be able to provide every major marketing tactic as a solution for our clients so we could offer the best recommendations. And so today we're going to dive into really a basic hashtag that we use as part of our social media posting and everything, but really breaks down what we believe at least are the core marketing principles or principles that if you follow, you will have success with. And we've tried and proven these with many different clients in a lot of different industries. And I'll give some examples of that as we dive in. So if you have any questions as we're talking here, please feel free to just chime in and ask away. And we definitely can make this interactive with any questions that pop up. So we're going to dive right in here. And one of the first things that often marketers, advertisers, and businesses think about, and there might be different terminology that's used, is the phrase customer journey or marketing journey, customer funnel. There's a lot of popularity with the word funnel and getting a customer to go down your funnel to the end. And we've tried to really simplify what we feel is the right approach when we're considering what the goals are of any marketing that you do. And before we go through the journey real quick, I want to just state that we view marketing as anything that you're doing to spread or increase awareness of your brand, your business, your nonprofit, your school district, your organization. So that could be an email you send out, it's your business cards you hand to people, your brochures, if you sponsor an event and you have a booth, your signage is part of that marketing effort. And then of course, other things that you might think of traditionally like television and radio and social media. But we feel there's 4 basic goals when it comes to those marketing efforts. First, we want to make sure that people are aware of who you are. And we always like to say that if they're not aware, they can't put you on the shopping list to even consider interacting or engaging you. Once we know that we have that awareness going, we next want to create interest in your brand, in your organization. And then the third key goal of this along the way is to create that desire, the desire to want to learn more, to engage your brand, your business, so that they can have that opportunity to consider the fourth and final thing, that action that they're going to take or not take. And we view actions 2 ways. An action can be choosing not to do business with you just as much as it is to do business with you. So as you go about your days and weeks with any of your messaging and your marketing efforts, you always want to consider what the things that we're doing, at what levels do they touch? And you'll have some elements that touch all of these points. They create awareness, they generate interest, they elicit a desire in somebody, and there's a call to action that helps them make a quick yes or no decision on whether they want to engage you or not. But there's other tactics that are really doing the seed planting, for instance, and creating that awareness and exposure so that later on, when they hear more about your story, your company, etc., then there's that opportunity to go through that intent and a desire and action. So I mentioned the, let's see, let me close that real quick. There we go. I mentioned our hashtag, and that's who, how, and what. And we are firm believers that if we are disciplined in our efforts to work with any organization, and any organization that works with us is equally disciplined to stay true to this principle of who you should market to, how you should market to them, and then what you should say to them, that they will have success. So we're going to break that down a little bit as we go through the elements today and talk about the who, how, and what. Then we have a fourth square up there, and that is the results. And that's one of the key things that we as an organization are very passionate about, is measuring anything and everything we can possibly do. If we send out an email with a client, how did it perform? And we think about the ways that we can measure the success of that email. How many people opened it? How many people clicked on it and learned more information? How many people called us from that email? And then, can we make a difference in those results based on what day of the week we send that email out, or what time of the day we send it out? So we're very big about the measurement after those things, and we'll talk again a little bit about that more at the end. But I really want to focus first on the who, and then we'll discuss the how and then the what. All right, let's see here. Okay, so the first part is the who. And this is really, truly the most vital part of the formula, and that's why it's at the beginning. And sometimes people will come to us and they'll be very excited because they've got a video that they produced, or they've got a website that they've fully developed already, and now they want to go promote it to people, but they haven't thought about who it is that they're going to be inviting to come to that website, or who it is that they're going to show that video to. And often, if you haven't thought about who's going to see it or interact with it first, you might have missed the mark in some of your messaging. And so that's why the who is the first part of the hashtag. And when it comes to marketing, and you think about your business and your organizations, there's really three basic ways that you can target people when it comes to marketing. First is geographic targeting. And I do want to put a little asterisk here. It's not every form of marketing has every option available, and we'll talk about some examples of those differences as we go through this. But the first category is the geographic targeting. Second is demographic, and then the third is a fancy buzzword called psychographic. Geographic targeting is really exactly what it says. What geography, what areas, what communities do you want your message to be seen in? And so depending on the platform or the marketing tactic you're using, you have the ability or flexibility to choose the geography in a lot of different ways that you're going to target. The first most basic way is a radius. You plug in a particular address or business or location, and you say, okay, anybody within a certain radius of that pin that we've placed can see, has the potential to be exposed to the ads. You can target by zip codes, you can target by cities, by county, state, and or up to a country level. There are a few other ways depending on the media. So for instance, traditional television or radio advertising is actually sold geographically by what's called a DMA, a dominant market area. And so that is where it's kind of predetermined by how strong the radio signal is. So for instance, if we were all to well, as a company, we are running ads right now on the ESPN radio station in Salt Lake City, and that ad has the ability to be heard by people all the way up into Weber County, down into Utah County a bit. So that geography is kind of pre-chosen for us by the strength of their radio signal. But in most other cases, we can go in and select the specific areas. So if we're choosing to run an advertisement on Facebook, for instance, we can say, and our business is in Mill Creek, and we know that most people that are going to come visit us are going to come within about 5 miles, maybe a 5 to 10 minute drive to come to us. And so we can set that as our radius or our target area so that we're not wasting money by spending it in areas that we don't think people will come from to visit us or to interact with us. The second part that we can overlay on that geography is the demographics. Think of that as like basic census data. For instance, age ranges, gender, marital status, household income levels, and parental status. So those are some of the key ways that you can then layer that in. So you could say, all right, I'd like to reach people that are within Salt Lake County and are married and have children. And that could be a subset that we want to reach because of the type of business that we're in. Then the next key part, the psychographic, is really where things can get pretty cool and extremely targeted for who we want to reach. And there's a few key ways that we can do that psychographic targeting. The location-based queries, those are going to be things where people are looking for things in and around in or near them, near where they live, near where they work, or near maybe where they commute from. The next is going to be interest-based. So that's going to be things that we have left kind of a trail about us during the course of our day as we go and experience things we fill out online, whether that's surveys or emails we respond to, websites we visit, pages we like on social media, accounts that we follow on social media, music or themes that we listen to, certain podcasts, certain types of music, certain YouTube channels we like. Those all kind of leave a trail about us. So for instance, again, we'll go back to that targeting. We want to target people in Salt Lake County that are married, that are parents, and we want to reach people that engage programming that is youth oriented, maybe entertainment type. So we could, again, narrow that down even further because maybe we're trying to sell a product like a new toy. And so we want to ensure that anybody that in our toy is geared towards that 6 to 11-year-old range. Then we want to make sure that we're serving it to people that are most likely going to be interested in engaging and considering purchasing our product based on the advertising that they see. Some other ways that we can also target, and this is especially popular for a lot of businesses that are doing more business-to-business marketing. They're looking for leads for different things, whether they're selling a product or a software or a service. And we can do targeting based on their occupation. So we can target by job titles, by names of companies, by sizes of companies, by revenue. And so again, we can layer in there and target uniquely. So one of our clients has a software product, and it is uniquely designed to be used by municipalities. So water districts, sewer districts, cities, counties, ports, those are their main clients, anybody in the US. So their geography is set nationwide. Their demographics, as long as they're an adult and employed, we're okay with it. The key for them is that occupation targeting. So they want to ensure that anybody that's seeing that ad that we're sending out for them works for one of the municipalities in the country and has one of about 5 particular job titles that has the ability to make an influence the purchase of the software or make the decision directly to purchase the software. So you can see that depending upon who it is that you're reaching, that's going or targeting, that's going to dictate how big or how narrow your geographic targeting is, and then might impact that demographics and then allows you to layer in that psychographic there. So for instance, with them, we want to know that any city manager, assistant city manager, and director of public works is seeing this ad for the software that they promote. Another key way that we can target, and is something that most of us do on a regular daily if not daily basis, is keyword based. So that is really search advertising, and for the most part. So again, we often are searching for things, right? We're hungry, we want to go out tonight for dinner. We might say, hey, best Italian restaurant near me or around me. Or if we know we're going to be in town, up in downtown Salt Lake, and we can put a geographic consideration around there. So we have historical data that's captured on things that people have searched for in the past, so we can identify them as potentially interested in what it is that we're trying to promote or sell, whether we're a car dealer, a nonprofit, a baker, a dry cleaner, whomever it might be. We can think about those words that people might search for that are related to the industry that we're in. And that allows for a really savvy, more narrowed down target audience. We do a lot of work in the public sector, and one of those sectors that we work with are public school districts. And especially the past few years, there's been a lot of districts that have lost children to private schools, charter schools, online schools, potentially temporarily, but also potentially long-term. as a lot of people have felt concerned that the public schools weren't quite ready to handle these changes that impacted us due to the pandemic. So when we're helping them and trying to retain or attract students, we're doing very narrow targeting. So we might go in and, for instance, say, okay, we know the school district serves these zip codes. So there's our geographic targeting. Our demographic, we know we want to talk to parents of children of particular age ranges. So we might say we want to ensure that children enroll with their school district for kindergarten. So we want to target parents of children that are in preschool. And then we go into the psychographic targeting, and we want to look for any parents that are looking for schools. So parents that have done recent searches for what's the best education for my child, what's the best elementary school or charter school in my area, or maybe they've been visiting education-based websites, going to online websites such as K12.com and others. And so we're kind of building those different identities so that we know, again, who we should target. Are there any questions about this targeting aspect so far? Okay, great. And again, this is such a valuable and important thing that we really feel that any business, this is where you should be spending a lot of your time as you're thinking about things. And you don't want to get too crazy. We've had some situations where I've seen businesses create 20 different types of groups of customers that they feel they serve. And I would say on an extremely rare case, that's actually what they probably needed to do. In most cases, you're going to tend to find that your customers fall into one of a handful of buckets of type of people. And that's where you're going to, and that would be the majority of people that you're going to service. So that's where you should focus on making sure you kind of understand who they might be. And then once you know that, now is when we can start talking about and considering how are we going to get the message out to them? And that's the next word in our hashtag of who, how, what is the how. And so with Target River, and these are our branded versions, but I'll kind of give you the basics, general thing. There's a lot of different ways to promote your business nowadays. And the first thing that we always encourage any business to do is think about the existing things that you already have at your fingertips. Do an audit of everything that you have available. So if you have an e-commerce store, for instance, and you're using Shopify, what tools do you have that Shopify has available for you? For instance, does it have an email subscription list that you have available? If so, have you turned that on? Have you made it an option for people to be able to fill in their email address, basically giving you permission to send them messaging in the future? Which social platforms do you have? Do you have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, YouTube, LinkedIn? Which ones do you have? And the ones that you don't have, even if you don't intend to use them, at least secure your name on those platforms so that other people don't secure your name on that Snapchat handle or YouTube channel. But again, audit those. If you're thinking about how else you communicate with your customers, are you getting cell phone numbers that you can text message? Are they subscribing to that? Do you have physical addresses that you could consider future postcard mailings or other types of communication? So again, an important thing is to, before you start thinking about spending any money on any form of paid advertising, get that audit done of what you have at your disposal or what you can implement. And sometimes it might be something that you just haven't turned it on yet, and you can go ahead and do that. Or you might have those social channels, but you haven't promoted them. For instance, we find clients who don't have all of their social channels listed on their website. And that's a basic thing that can be done to help increase the number of people that are engaging and following you. Once you've done that audit, then of course the next key step is, okay, how are we going to utilize these things that we have at our own disposal that don't cost us any money in most cases other than our time or effort to put messaging out there? And I'll give you one quick example that we see pretty much every week. We often have clients and other businesses that we just interact with where they might be pretty consistent about putting a post out on Instagram, but for some reason, they don't take that same information and repurpose it on Facebook, or they have a Twitter handle as well, but they don't take that information and tweet it out, or they don't share it on their LinkedIn profile. And so it's really important as you're creating this information, and maybe it's you're writing that Facebook post, to consider where else you can use the information that you've created. Can you put that in a simple email that you send out to those that have subscribed to an email list that you have? Can you take that and convert that into an Instagram post? Can you compress that down and shorten it into a simple tweet of 160 characters or less? How can you rewrite that to maybe make it more appropriate to a business environment and post that on LinkedIn if it seems relevant? So again, as you're putting effort into doing some of these things on your own, always be mindful of what you can do, how you can repurpose that. If you have a website and you'd like to post news stories or blogs on the website and you're writing good content there, how can you take that and make that social post that you share? Or vice versa, how can you take that 2-paragraph Facebook post and expand it to become a little news story or blog that you put on your website? So we are big advocates of always use as much as you already have at your disposal, because you're putting the effort in already. So go ahead and take a little bit of extra effort there. Once you've done that now and you're like, okay, what's next, Brian? We've done those efforts, or we're working through them, and we still need to get the message out more. There are a litany of ways that you can promote your business nowadays. Just think about your daily experience, right? If you drive at all in the state of Utah, what do you see nonstop? And it's almost obnoxious. Billboards everywhere, for instance. What else do you experience during the course of the day? Is it music or talk through radio stations? Or maybe you are a streaming person and you're listening to music on Spotify or Pandora or iHeart. You go to your mailbox, you check the mail. Yes, there's a lot of junk mail in there, but that's advertising. How often when we go to our email box, are there just tons of email solicitations there? And if you're like me, sometimes I sit and wonder, when did I ever subscribe to that account or that business or whatever? And I kind of scratch my head. But there are so many options nowadays. The challenge is, which ones are the best? And that's where the how comes in. And that's, again, why we do this after we know the who. Because if we know who we want to target, that really helps dictate things when it comes to our marketing. So I'm going to use Target River as an example with a campaign we've been running for ourselves to promote ourselves as an agency. So we had two kind of groups that we wanted to target. We recently received a authorization as a marketing agency for the state of Utah and any department that receives funding from the state. And we wanted to ensure that every person that is a decision maker with any department in the state was aware of this unique distinction that we received, because we were authorized to service those departments in 14 categories, the most of any agency in the country. And so we put together a very targeted campaign because we knew our who, right? We knew that we wanted employees of any department in the state of Utah. So our geography was set, demographics. We didn't care whether they were married, single, what income level they had, what parental status they had. We cared about where they worked or who they worked for and what they did. So that allowed us to then have that targeted audience. So then we looked at our options and said, okay, what are the best things that we can do? Well, and I'll go through these list of options here, and then we'll talk about what we ended up choosing to do. The second group that we wanted to target, we said, okay, we also, even though this was specific to the state of Utah, this particular contract, they did a great job of vetting 45 ad agencies to see who was the best for the state to work with. And because we received the highest distinction out of any, we wanted every business owner in the state to know this as well, since the state of Utah kind of did the homework for them. So we also looked at that and said, okay, how can we reach decision makers, influencers, or business owners within the state of Utah? So those were our two audiences that we had to do our homework to figure out what's the best way to reach them. So the first thing we looked at was target social. So that's organic social posting you do on your Facebook, your Instagram, etc., like we've talked about. We said, okay, well, we do that on a regular basis anyways. We'll put our message out about this distinction and we'll move on. The next thing we looked at was target TV. we said, okay, could we produce a video that tells our story? Yes, of course we could. But could we target these two audiences that we wanted to reach cost efficiently through some form of television marketing? And we identified that just based on how you can purchase television and the restrictions on how you can choose your audience, that it wasn't going to, number one, allow us to run ads only to those state employees. So that wasn't an option to select. So we knew that that group wouldn't work. So we said, could we use television advertising to reach business owners, decision makers, influences of any size business in the state? And the answer is yes, but it was just cost prohibitive. So we realized, okay, while that is an option for that group, it's going to be very expensive. The next thing we looked at was email marketing in target mail. And we didn't have a robust database of business owners in the state, but we did have a database of about 2,000 of the state employees that we could market to. So we chose to create an email that we could send and allow us to cover that segment of our target audience. So again, that's why I'm going to be redundant here. It's so important to know your who, your audience is first before you start picking your marketing tactic. The next thing we looked at was direct mail. We said, okay, well, we have the offices, the addresses of all the state departments, but we said, you know what? A lot of them are working remotely right now or hybrid schedules and stuff. So we could send direct mail out to these employees and it might sit there for weeks because we didn't know how frequently they're getting their mail deployed to them at their homes or they're coming in to get their direct mail and stuff. So we thought that probably wasn't best based on the current state of the pandemic. The second group, business owners and influencers, yes, we could do direct mail, but we're like, oh my gosh, that list would be massive. So the cost alone would be quite expensive because just the postage would be 35 cents or so a piece. And we realized, okay, that's going to be a pretty expensive option. So let's not consider that. The next thing we looked at is target SEO, search engine optimization. So those are basically tactics that you use or do on your website as well as off of your website to try to increase the position of your website when someone does a search related to what you do. So if you own a local grocery market and people are searching for grocery store near me, market near me, etc., those types of phrases, this is work to try to increase the chance that a listing for your grocery store is going to appear on the first page of a search on DuckDuckGo or GoDaddy or Google or Yahoo or any other search site. Well, we realized we already do this all the time for ourselves, so it wasn't something unique that we needed to do here. Target contact. This is an interesting one where businesses are able to directly generate inbound calls and inbound email leads from people that are searching. This can be appropriate and is typically best suited for service providers. So I'll give you some examples. Lawyers that have any type of thing or service that they're offering or specialty. Bail bonds. So one of our clients is the largest bail bond company in the country. And when people have a loved one in jail, they're usually not shopping a lot to find out which is the best bondsman. They call, they try to get a hold of one and they get them out. But think about others. If you're an HVAC company or solar, you want inbound leads of people that are saying, hey, I'm interested in learning about your product or about your service. And so we try to generate those inbound phone calls. We found for us that there isn't an immediate urgency for marketing in most cases, so that we didn't think that we would be very effective in generating a lot of direct inbound calls from a search campaign for us. But that can be very valuable for a lot of businesses, like I mentioned, that there is some sense of urgency almost when it comes to the purchase, or it's a highly competitive thing. So think about your flood remediation or plumbing services, right? If you've ever had a flood, it's a panic and you want to get it stopped and fixed right away. And so again, it's all about who can get the phone call first, because that's most likely who's going to get the order to at least go out and inspect it. And if nothing else, at least put a stop to the flooding that's occurring and giving them an opportunity to bid on the remediation. The next couple of things that we looked at when we think about is target web. And that's really your website enhancements. Thinking about, hey, when people come to my website, what do they experience? How easy is it to interact with my website? Am I inviting them to take action? So if we talk about that customer journey again, and the steps of awareness, interest, desire, and action, does my website support that? There's oftentimes beautiful websites that at a glance would win some amazing awards for the photography and the design and the colors. But from an ability to actually help a business go, they often fail because they're not helping people go through that journey. They're not engaging people. They're not inviting them to learn more. And often, sadly, they're not asking them to do something, to take that next step. And so that's an important solution thing to think about. And we always recommend, and this is not a sales pitch for us, you don't have to ask a marketing company. If you haven't invited people that you feel would give a candid assessment of your website in a while, invite 10, 20, 30 people to visit your website from both their laptop or desktop, but more importantly, actually from their mobile phone. And the reason it's even more important is because the majority of visitors for most websites, and there are some exceptions in industries, but most website visits are being done on a mobile device. And unfortunately, a lot of web developers focus on how beautiful it looks on that big monitor that we have on our desk, but they don't think about the experience that somebody has when they come from their website or from their phone. So you want to think about that as well. Invite people, give them that candid feedback and tell them, hey, I'd love you to do this for me. Could you? And here's the goals that I have for people that visit my website. Let them know that what you want to achieve when somebody comes to your website, and then ask them to evaluate that. And you'll get some good candid feedback that you can then take back. And if you're doing it yourself on like a platform like GoDaddy's website builder or Wix or Square or something, you can go in and start manipulating some of those things. Or if you have a website map, a webmaster or company you work with, you can give them that list of things. And of course, ask them as well to do that assessment for you. The next thing that we know that oftentimes companies forget to do, and we actually did a recent study last year of 100 of the top brands, and we wanted to find out how many of them had taken the steps to protect their brand name that they trademarked online with the search engines. And we found only 12 out of 100 top brands in the region had actually taken this step. And what this means and what the impact is a lot of people go and they do the process of securing their name through the US Patent Office, so they get their little trademark on their business name, like we did, Target River, okay? But what they forget to do or don't know to do is to do a protection online that helps enforce or restrict the ability of your competitors to bid on your name on search platforms. So here's a real life example. One of our clients is called Beach Bunny Swimwear, and they had not trademark enforced their brand name on the search engines. So what was happening is all of these other swimsuit providers, back when Victoria's Secret did swimsuits and other brands, they would bid on the Beach Bunny name. And so what that means is when people would do a search for Beach Bunny Swimwear, instead of seeing ads or messaging for them, you'd see ads for all these other competitors. And so, of course, who's going to get the visits to the website then? These competitors were. So they were literally poaching tens of thousands of clicks a month that should have gone to Beach Bunny. And so we put in an enforcement there that allowed them to reduce their spend per customer to get a visitor to their website by 90%. And we were able to increase the volume of visitors they had by over 300%. And so that's an important thing to make sure if you have a trademark name that you do, and take that enforcement, and that can be done on both Bing, Microsoft Bing's search platform, and Google's. Google's is obviously the most important because about 90% of search, depending on the industry, is done in the Google search platform. The next thing that you need to look at and consider is target reach, and that's a little buzzword for us, but that's basically the digital paid ads that you might run on Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram. And consider those tactics. So going back to our story of our target audiences, we said, okay, can we target any of them through any of those state employees through any of these platforms? Yes, we could. So we started running a campaign that targeted individuals on the LinkedIn platform based on their job title and who their employer was. We also took all those emails that we had of those state employees and we uploaded them to Facebook. And then Facebook told us, out of all those emails, here's how many of those people have a Facebook account. And so of those, there were about 900 of them that had a Facebook account. So we ran an ad promoting our new status to those 900 people, specifically those 900 people on Facebook. So again, it's taking that data of who you want to reach and then applying it to the platforms that are available to be able to get your message out there. The last couple of here, Target Grant. This is something for any nonprofit that is a 501c3. Okay, that's the key thing. It can't be a C6 or any of the others. It's a 501c3. So if you are on a board or a part of or volunteer with a nonprofit that is that status, most of them do not know that you can secure a grant from Google. It does not give you money, but it gives you an in-kind marketing budget each month of up to $10,000 per month that you can spend on Google's ad platform. So this is a great way to be able to promote two key things. Basically, most nonprofits want to get the message out about is promote the services that they offer to those that they serve, whether you serve sexual assault survivors or veterans or domestic abuse victims or child abuse victims or whoever that is, making sure that those that need your services are aware of you. And then the second common thing that most nonprofits want to get the word out about is how to support them with your time, talent, and treasure, how to volunteer, how to make a donation, etc. So these grants are amazing in being able to get the messaging out about those, and Google covers the cost. So it's a great way, and we encourage nonprofits to explore that and secure those grants. We've actually been helping, it's kind of a personal mission for us this year to help as many nonprofits in the state secure these. So I think we've helped 25 different nonprofits just in the state of Utah alone secure these grants this year. And so far it's generated over $500,000 of in-kind advertising for these nonprofits. So it can be extremely valuable. The last couple things that you want to think about for your target audience are target video, really that video production, okay? If you feel that your audience, it is relevant to get them to use a message or to use a video message, then think about the video that you want to send and the messaging that you want to put in there. Target PPC, that's paid search specifically. So again, anybody that that's often popular for people that have a service that we talked about earlier, or an e-commerce store where you're selling a lot of products, and you can have those actually feed right into the results of a search query. So that's that ability to really, and the two main platforms again for that are Microsoft's Bing platform and Google's search platform. We talked a bit about Target Outdoor, and you guys might wonder why we ended up doing this, but we chose to use a billboard strategically as part of our messaging. And normal common sense would say we shouldn't have done it, and I'll admit that, okay? Because our target audience was pretty narrow when it comes to state employees, right? But because we threw the wrinkle in of business owners as well, I said, okay, there's a good percent, or there's a good amount of those in the region. So we strategically found a billboard placed right next to an exit that feeds right into downtown, probably the busiest exit feeding into downtown Salt Lake. So we chose to secure space on that board to promote our message of this recognition that we had received. And we put that out there. And again, we went through that process of our audience, but then the key thing was we were really strategic about the location that we picked. Just not any board on the 15 corridor was going to work for us, or along State Street, or along any of the other thoroughfares in the area. We needed it to be the right exact place. And we also thought about, for instance, somebody slowing down. We thought about when they're driving here and they go by our board, what are they doing? Are they going to be distracted because there's several exits that are coming up and they're trying to figure out which lane to be in? That's not good. What's the height of the billboard? How far from the road is the billboard? How is it angled to the road? Are people going to be able to see it easily? So we really thought about all of these different things before we chose the board. Once we chose the board, then it was, okay, what are we going to say? And there's that old saying, KISS, right? Keep it simple, silly, right? And so with a billboard, that's so important, because if you think about it, especially on a freeway, someone is going 60, 70 miles an hour down the road, or maybe more, depending on how they're speeding. So their ability to slow down and read something that's got 20, 30 words, has a phone number, has a website, all those things, complete waste, because people aren't going to remember any of it. If you put too much, they're going to remember zero, versus if you put little amount, they're going to remember the key things. So for us, the key thing we wanted people to remember was our name and the distinction that we had just received. That was it. And one of the members on our team actually was like, well, wait a second, don't we want them to call us? Shouldn't we have our phone number on there? And another person said, well, wait a second, we want them to come to our website. Shouldn't we put our website on there? And I came back to them all and I challenged it and I said, well, wait a second. If they're driving down the freeway and they see a billboard, they're not supposed to be writing down a website or writing down a phone number. And I don't know about you, but I have a tough time remembering phone numbers. And so am I going to really remember a phone number I saw on a billboard that I'm going 70 miles an hour by? Probably not. But can I remember the name of the business and what it was that they were promoting? Yes. And then I can go do what most of us do anyways, even if we know a website. And I've watched this and observed this and studied this for years. It is amazing how many people, if you know the website, they don't go type it in directly. They actually put it into the name, into the search bar of Google anyways. And so that's what most people do. So if we got people to remember that Target River just got this distinction and they remembered our name, then they'll do what we all do. They'll go to their search engine, type in Target River or speak Target River into their device like Hey Siri or Hey Google. And then because we've done a good job with our website, they'll find our website right away and come to us. Billboards have become pretty popular too, because they are becoming more cost efficient if you look at the digital option. That's where a billboard is sharing up to, depending on the billboard, 8 to 10 different advertisers during the course of the day, versus a traditional billboard where one advertiser owns that space 24/7. So because you're sharing it on a digital billboard, your cost goes down because you're just not being exposed as often. But if you have the right audience, it can make sense. Target audio is radio. So this is another one where you want to think about that audience and the geography. And with radio, there's basically two options nowadays. You have your traditional radio that most of us listen to in our cars when we dial into different frequencies, or there's the streaming or digital option. That's where you're listening to podcasts, talk radio, music of different genres through Pandora, Spotify, iHeart, radio.com, Odyssey, and other platforms that are available to listen to your favorite music. You can do a little bit more targeting on the digital option. You can select by zip code, and then you can select by specific genres of music that you'd like to target. And you can even select by age ranges. On traditional radio, you're really selecting a format. You're saying, okay, the type of business I'm at, or I have, which radio station has music that most of my customers would want to listen to. So we have a client that owns multiple motorcycle dealerships. And for their brands, 92% of their customers are men. And the vast majority of them are ages 35 to about 65 years old. They obviously sell to others, but that's the core of their audience. So when we consider radio advertising for those multiple dealerships, we're looking at which radio station or stations has music that's going to attract a majority of men that are 35 to 64 years old, and then target and then select and run a campaign on that one. So that's a kind of the basics on the radio consideration. The last thing's really just design work, and that really comes down to the what. And a lot of people come to us, or we see where they spend so much time on what their message should be and what it should look like. And again, unfortunately, they've done that before they've even figured out who they need to reach and how they're going to reach them. We had a client that spent over $10,000 producing a video, and the only thing we ended up doing with that video was we posted it on their YouTube channel, their other social channels, and their website. We had very little use for it because video or television marketing was not the right tactic for their customer base. So they spent all this money on this beautiful 75, 80-second video that was pretty much useless for our marketing efforts. So it's really important, again, to think about it. So then when you do know who you're going to reach and you do know how you're going to reach them, then you can say, okay, great, we need a billboard design, or we need an email designed, and you know exactly what you need to create. The last key thing that's really important when you're designing things, and it could be a simple social post that you do 3-4 times a week on Facebook, or it could be an email newsletter that you send out once a week to people that have subscribed to your database, is you want to identify what things people connect with the most. So when we are looking at messaging and we think about an audience that we want to target, we always create at least 2 versions of an ad or a message or a social post to send out. That way we can see which one people connect with more. So for instance, if we have an email that we're sending out, we might take the 1,000 people that the email is going to and have one version go to 500 people and another version go to the other 500 people. Send it out on the same day at the same time and see which version people respond to more. So it helps us understand where we want to put things in our email and what things people care about a bit more. Then we might test something like on email, what day of the week is better to send my email out? What time of the day is it better? So we're constantly thinking about testing the things that we do. If you're doing social posts for your business and you're posting on Instagram, consider testing what days of the week or what times of the day you're doing your posts, and see if a certain days of the week or certain hours of the day get you more visibility, meaning having more people see those social posts, more people engage those social posts. So little things that if you take the little bit of extra effort, even if you're not doing any paid advertising and it's all things that you have at your disposal, test them. Test, is a video better, or is a illustration better on my social post? Is a photo better? Is a shorter caption better? What hashtag should I use? These little things can really make the difference in increasing the performance of all of the efforts that you're putting into your marketing and messaging efforts. This last slide here is just a quick recap of the who, how, and what. So we've covered this pretty exhaustively today, but again, it's follow this, follow this, follow this. We have done this strategy for practically every industry under the sun. I think our most obscure company that we've had the privilege of working with is a company that sells plastic sheeting for when there's natural disasters and people have to cover large scale buildings and other things with big industrial grade size plastic. That was a client of ours for a while. And we had to figure out who do we target to buy that, and then how can we reach them? And then the biggest challenge then at the end was, what are we going to say that's going to get them to buy this plastic sheeting from our client versus the handful of other competitors? But again, whether you're going to run for the local school board, or you own a dry cleaner, or you're a realtor, or you work at a dealership, whatever it might be, you're in the public sector, this strategy will work for you. Spend most of your time, 75% of your time, making sure you've got your who nailed down properly, then dive into the fun. And this is the fun part for me. How are we going to reach them? Diving into what are those best tactics. Make sure you've figured out which ones you already have at your control and your disposal. make sure you're using them and maximizing them, and then go out and consider any paid marketing efforts once you've done that internal audit of the free things that you have. And then of course, what is your ad going to say so that it can create that awareness to elicit interest, to drive desire, to create the actions that you want. So I appreciate your time today. Hopefully this has been helpful and beneficial. This last slide here just was a little slide that we put together that shows the results from that recent audit by the state. Won't bore you with that. And appreciate your time though. Thank you so much. My email address, if you'd like a copy of this, but we also have a couple of little cheat sheets that list all the tactics that you can choose and the targeting that you can do. And I'm happy to email those to you guys as resources. So my email address is Brian, B-R-I-A-N, at targetriver.com. Again, Brian at targetriver.com. And if you shoot me an email, I will make sure that you get those cheat sheets that can help you go through this journey for your own business to ensure that you are doing these steps in the proper order, in the proper way, so that you can maximize the results and have the growth that you desire as a business. So thank you so much for your time, and wish you the best of success in this fourth quarter and as everybody gets geared up and ready to go into 2022.
All right. Thank you so much, Brian. So much helpful information. Really glad to have you come and help us present on this and share this information that could be critical for a lot of businesses. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now.
Okay.